Hello, I'm Teha, and today NovelKey's just launched their newest in-house keyboard product, the classic TKL, an ABS injection molded gasket-mounted bare bones kit with an included foam kit for just $89. As you guys already know, NovelKey's has been a long-time channel sponsor, so consider this video as more of a product showcase than a review, but I will be giving my honest thoughts throughout this video. Inside the first round of classic TKLs, we get a GeonWorks plate fork in a custom proto yellow colorway, which is great to see considering the stock plate that comes with this is polycarbonate, extra screws and gaskets, a Torx key for assembly, which you can use for the entire build as all the screws use the same drive size, and a rubberized USB-C to A cable that pleasantly surprised me with how nice it was. Low-key, I think this cable might be the star of this bundle, as this is one of the nicest cables I've seen being shipped with a keyboard within this kind of price point. This first round will be a smaller run of only this bare bones kit priced at $89 that will be limited just to NovelKey's as the only vendor. Future runs, however, will be open to international vendors, and complete editions that include stabilizers, switches, and keycaps, as well as ISO variants, will all be available at a later date. The classic TKL is made of injection molded ABS and will launch with 3 colors: Based Black, which is the colorway that I was sent, Retro Bright Beige, and Proto Yellow, which will be limited to 100 units. It features per key RGB lighting, a right side USB-C port, a RGB light bar with an aluminum enclosure ring and gasket seal to prevent light bleed. Light bleed, believe it or not, is still an issue in 2024. An internal silicone weight similar to what was offered with the NK65 and 87, with a pass-through JST channel, self-centering tabs for the center gaskets so your PCB and plate fixture is centered, and something that I haven't really seen much of in this hobby, large full contact silicone feet that's meant to aid with acoustics and prevent slippage even if you place the keyboard directly on your desk without a desk mat. In practice, this increase in friction definitely does help reduce slippage dramatically, and I like that it's integrated as a part of the design. So this keyboard was designed by Neflock, an extremely talented designer we're fortunate to have in our space, who's designed hit keycap sets such as GMK Metropolis and GMK Kaiju. And it's evident the classic TKL is a nod to the retro keyboard design language with all the curves that are present. The rounded front cherry style entry lip, and of course the large vintage forehead with the aluminum title badge that contains a pop of red, but with a modern twist, and I'm personally all for it. I really think it looks nice if you're into this kind of aesthetic. The classic TKL will come with an injection molded polycarbonate plate by default, but you can purchase an aluminum, brass, or copper plate as extras if you'd like, and NovelKey's will be releasing the plate file for those who want to tinker with it. I've been using this keyboard for the past 3 weeks, and all my testings were done with lubed Cherry MX Black switches, which I'm going to make the standard switch for this channel moving forwards. Okay, let's talk about the typing feel first. The general feel of the classic TKL I found, regardless of whether you use foam or not, is that it leans towards a stiffer typing experience, with the exception of the stock polycarbonate plate. This is neither a good nor bad thing, just a matter of preference. The polycarbonate plate without any foam installed does allow for an increase in softness and introduces a slight bounce compared to the rest, but it's more of a gentle bounce as opposed to typing on a trampoline. The keys across each position on the board feel relatively consistent in terms of feel, which is definitely an improvement over the NK65 and 87, as I found those to have hotspots in certain areas that felt a little bit stiffer. The aluminum plate without any foam feels like a solid old school top mount. And if I had to rate the firmness, with 1 being a bouncy house and 10 being an integrated plate, I'd say the aluminum plate with all the foam installed feels like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 in terms of firmness. The brass and copper plates are by far the stiffest, feeling like a 9 out of 10, and I might even say this was a little bit too stiff for my taste, but once again, this is a preference thing. With the initial batch of metal plates, however, I did find the stabilizer housing cutouts on the plate to be too tight. I built mine with TXAP stabilizers, and initially some of the stabilized keys weren't returning properly due to the tightness, but after a light sanding, they did work fine. NovelKey's is aware of this issue, and this will be addressed for future batches, so if you do end up picking up a first round metal plate, your mileage may vary depending on which stabilizers you build with. The stock polycarbonate plate, however, that this keyboard ships with did not exhibit this issue. Onto the acoustics, and keep in mind this is all subjective and preference based. If you plan on sticking with the polycarbonate plate that comes by default, I think what switch you put in will dictate whether it needs foam or not. Overall, the board doesn't sound too hollow even without the foam, but with the polycarbonate plate, I found it to sound a little too plasticky without the foam in some areas. Primarily, the alphas were not the usual tone that I tend to like with Cherry MX Black builds. With foam, the board does sound more like what I expect from a decent Cherry MX Black build. The alpha still preserve the tone of MX Blacks, and the nav cluster and mods sound really nice. Anyone who's built with foam knows that there is a universal foamy sound signature that foam tends to impart to varying degrees. So if you can imagine adding this foamy sound signature in terms of intensity with a slider from 0 to 100%, I would say that in my time with this board, I found that adding all the foam felt like I was cranking that slider to around the 50 to 60% mark. The aluminum plate sounds very pleasant with or without foam and was my favorite configuration, providing me with a classic old school Cherry MX Black signature that I'm very used to. I preferred the brass plate over the copper plate with my builds, but using either plates will noticeably increase the volume of the board, and I personally would use both of these plates with foam, as without foam they exhibited a tiny bit of pinginess with Cherry MX Blacks. All in all, I think the classic TKL has some decent improvements over NovelKey's initial two board releases. I think the price point is very competitive, it's got thoughtful design throughout, and the only major complaint I would have is that it didn't launch with more plate configurations that offered a softer typing experience, as that is a pretty common feel enthusiasts tend to like these days. But at the same time, a stiffer typing experience is kind of in line with the retro keyboard theme, and NovelKey's can choose to explore these options in future releases. If you're new to keyboards, I think this keyboard is going to be yet another great option to start with. And even if you are a seasoned veteran, I think this keyboard is going to be a great commuter board that you can take to work, or perhaps even a nice gift for a relative who isn't in the hobby yet. As a TKL, I think everyone can get into a TKL layout pretty easily. Alright, that's it for this video. If you'd like to support the channel, consider purchasing the classic TKL using my affiliate link at no extra cost to you at novelkeys.com/teatypes. And until next time, see you nerds.